When you grow up with a mom like me, you're bound to have some great stories to tell. I always encouraged my kids to take notice of and enjoy the mysterious and unusual events that occur in our lives when our eyes are open to see them. For my son's birthday, he is taking his wife and baby daughter camping, her first camping trip, and she's only 9 months old. Coincidentally, Jack's first camping trip was before he was a year old as well. So tonight, in honor of my son's birthday and his daughter's first camping trip, I want to tell you about a few of our fun and unusual adventures. I had never seen the Northern California coast, and the kids had never seen the ocean, so we planned a family camping trip, stopping to take in the breathtaking redwoods and then on up the coast. My daughters had given me Anne Rice's The Witching Hour book for my birthday, which absolutely set the stage for the perfect accompaniment to read aloud at our nightly campfires. And we made sure to visit the schoolyard where Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds was filmed in Bodega Bay. We drove on up the winding Highway 1 with the most incredible views of the rocky California coastline and camped at Salt Point. Our first night was right out of a horror movie. We were all tucked in tight in our sleeping bags and settled in for the night when we started hearing a noise outside the tents, a noise like I'd never experienced before, and I'd spent a lot of time camping all over Colorado. But this sound was unearthly, loud. It sounded like crazy grunting or snorting and digging, and we were scared to death to look outside the tent. Of course, we had absolutely no way to protect ourselves. We didn't own a gun. We didn't even have a pocket knife in our tent with us. I was sure we were all going to be dead by morning. At some point, the noise finally stopped, and we all laid awake, hoping whatever it was would stay away. Finally, morning came, and we ventured out of the tent. Our campsite was a mess. Everything we had was strewn from one side of the camp to the other. The metal cooler, which had held our canned food and supplies, was dented and smashed. The Coleman lantern was knocked over and broken, and the Coleman cook stove that had been on the picnic table was smashed as if stepped on. We packed up to leave right away, and we never did find out what had destroyed our campsite. But as we left, I asked the park ranger what he thought it might have been. And from my description of the sound, he thought they were probably wild pigs. Hard to say, not being familiar with them, but the girls were certain it was a Bigfoot. Over the years, we went on many camping and outdoor adventures, fishing and skiing and hiking, and many road trips through the western United States. We had so many strange and unusual occurrences that would fit right into a Twilight Zone episode. One of my favorites is the story about the watch. After graduating from college, my oldest daughter had moved to Bozeman, Montana. We were very excited about visiting her and camping in Yellowstone and seeing the Tetons, places we'd always wanted to visit. My son was around 10 at the time, and we packed up our car with camping gear and took off for a 2-week vacation in August to celebrate both our birthdays. It was a great road trip. We brought along Stephen King and Philip Pullman audiobooks to listen to, and enough snacks to keep us both happy for the long trip. We spent 2 great weeks seeing all the familiar tourist spots in Yellowstone and Jackson Hole and the breathtaking Tetons, and we found Bozeman to be a fun town with lots of good restaurants and fun stores. It was the day before my birthday, and Jack had spotted a watch in the window of one of the shops in downtown Bozeman. It was silver with beautiful turquoise and coral inlay, a Native American design, and had a small clock face attached to the band. He knew I would love it. That afternoon, Jack asked his sister to borrow $50 so he could buy that watch for me. Celeste took me aside and told me what Jack wanted to do, so I secretly gave her the $50 and she passed the money on to Jack later that afternoon. The next morning, Jack snuck out of the house to walk down to the shop, waiting outside till the shop doors opened, and purchased the watch for me. It was such a beautiful watch band, and it fit perfectly. We had a great birthday dinner at my daughter's house, and afterward I started to help wash up the dishes. I took the watch off and placed it on the counter shelf above the kitchen sink. After finishing the dishes, I reached for the watch, but it was gone. We searched and searched for that watch. I stuck my hand down the disposal, wondering if it somehow dropped off into the sink. We looked on the floor, on every counter, in the trash, in the cupboards, in the refrigerator. We searched every inch of that house. No one could find the watch. Jack was devastated, as was I. We had planned to leave early the next day for our road trip home, and I didn't want to leave without my gift. My daughter, being the practical one in the family, said she knew it would eventually show up and that she'd mail it to me when it did. We proceeded to pack our things, load up the car, and continued to look for the watch. The next morning it was time to go. We all stood by the car, hugging and saying our goodbyes. Now, mind you, this was in August, and it was hot. I was wearing just a tank top and some running shorts, so no pockets at all, as was Jack and the rest of the people standing there to say goodbye. I reached for the door handle of the car, and in that split second of reaching for the handle, I felt something enter the palm of my hand. My fingers instinctively grasped the object, and I turned my palm over. In my hand was my watch. Everyone standing there saw it happen. It just literally appeared out of thin air. My son-in-law gasped and said, "Wow, that was a cool sleight of hand trick." My daughter gasped, "Mom!" And Jack's eyes widened in absolute disbelief. I gazed down at the watch in my hand, shaking my head with wonderment, and all I could do was say thank you under my breath to whatever or whomever had made that magic happen. It was just another one of those things that can't be explained, can't be duplicated, and you've just got to be grateful that the universe contains mysteries that make our lives so darn interesting. I still have that watch, and although the faceplate is cracked and the watch no longer keeps time, I still like to hold it in my hand from time to time and remember the feeling I had when that watch mysteriously appeared in the palm of my hand. We always liked to bring board games with us on our camping trips, and one of my favorites was Yahtzee. Jack was being a rather poor sport, tired of playing the game since Mom kept winning, and he was just about to lose his temper. Unfortunately, with any game of dice, you can't really throw a game. You're either lucky or you're not. Jack was irritated and said, "I never get a Yahtzee." I'm sure all of you are familiar with the game, but in case you're not, a Yahtzee is when you throw all 5 dice and they all land on the same number. The higher the number, the higher the score. The odds of throwing a Yahtzee are pretty slim. So I made up an elaborate joke to kind of lighten the mood and told Jack the reason he never got a Yahtzee is because he had to follow this routine. Take your dice. He did. Shake them in your hands. He did. Blow on them. He did. Touch them to your forehead. He rolled his eyes, but he still did it. Picture 5 6s in your mind. He really rolled his eyes this time. And now toss them. He did. And 5 dice landed on the picnic table, face up, all the number 6. Jack looked at me with eyes as big as saucers. I just started chuckling and breathed a thank you out to the mysterious universe that has a grand sense of humor. But one of my most favorite memories of our camping trips was when Jack was a few years younger, about 5 or 6, I think. We had camped near a stream in Hope Valley, one of the most beautiful places we'd ever been. We had taken a hike along the stream bank, and Jack found some fishing line that a careless fisherman had left behind. There was still a fish hook attached to the line. Jack was very excited and found a branch to tie his line on. With the patience of a saint, he sat on a rock at the stream's edge and waited for a fish to bite that hook. Now, there was no bait on that little hook that was dangling off that skinny, broken branch. I sat in the meadow, marveling at the patience and surety Jack had that some fish would swim up and bite his hook, and acknowledging the fact that the likelihood of that happening was next to none, and how disappointed he would be to fail at his first attempt to catch a fish. But once again, our guardian angel stepped up to help this little guy out. Sure enough, a little fish snagged that hook. Jack excitedly pulled the fish up out of the water and proudly showed me his catch. I was astonished. We discussed the fact that it was just a tiny little thing and probably had some growing to do yet, so he tenderly dislodged the hook and let the little fish swim away. But the pride he had in catching his first fish was enormous. I feel truly grateful for this mysterious universe we live in. I can't wait to hear what mysteries little Remy Wild will have growing up and learning to appreciate the wonders of nature. Happy birthday, Jack.